My name is Alex Pitkin, Senior Architect with SMMA, the architects for the Somerville High School. We thought we'd start today by talking a little bit about the outside of the high school, and then we'll move into the inside, since so much has progressed since our last tour. But we're standing outside of the new main entrance. Those of you who knew the old high school will remember that the new main entrance is almost exactly where the atrium entrance was in the previous building. So really the new high school is shifted completely to the east, and what we're standing in today is the academic quadrangle, which is part of the Central Hill Master Plan. And so you can see that it's flanked by the main library to the east, and right here to the west, the Memorial Hall, we call it, which is the old original gymnasium, and it was serving as a library for many years since the 1980s, and will be the new auditorium theater for the new high school. So you can see that we have a brand new plaza. This is going to be primarily a car-free zone. A lot of drop-off and pickup will be allowed here, but because Central Hill is literally central to the city, we're anticipating well over 50% of the students will find their way from East Somerville in the area bounded by the library and the new school. You can see that the new facade, it's a terracotta system, panel system. It's meant to blend with the library and with the red brick that predominates the campus. You can see that we've also created sheltered areas that also protect the really beautiful south-facing facades from a lot of solar gain and glare. And that's really what the system is that you're looking up on the facade today, that is all sort of shading the science labs and other classrooms. And so as we enter into the main part of the building, this is also the heart of the school. We have the gymnasium behind us, and then also the main library, which sits up on the second and third floors. And then, as I had mentioned, the auditorium, which will be a major public event space at the new high school.
My name's Matt Rice. I'm an architect with SMMA. Part of the story of the new Somerville High School as well, I think, is the stormwater management techniques and strategies that we've implemented here. There's about 100% of the rainwater that we're capturing off of the roof of the new high school that's being diverted into two large underground cistern tanks. One here on the eastern side of the 1929 construction, and another one over on the western side. So in addition to the roof water that we're collecting, we're actually also collecting water through the entirety of this entry plaza drive, both on this side as well as in front of the 1895 building in City Hall. So what they're installing here right now are some permeable pavers. They're going to run across the entirety of the driveway. So all that rainwater is not just getting diverted and sort of surface runoff to other areas of the city. We're actually collecting it here. It's getting diverted into the stormwater tanks, and then it will be used for irrigation throughout the site. So we're still on target for January 4th, temporary certificate of occupancy for the phase 1 and the phase 2 sections of the building. The auditorium is going to be subsequent to that, likely in late March, early April, that sort of time frame. But we know that the district is planning on having some students come here starting on the 5th of January. It's still in development as to exactly which group of students will be here. It's those in the sort of the initial phase of things, but we're geared up, and there's a lot of activity happening on site right now to make sure that students can be here starting in January.
And some of the features that you'll take notice of, there's a tremendous amount of rebuilding of the entire plaza area. A lot of granite, a lot of very solid materials. Those who may remember that the condition of the site was in relatively poor shape when we started. But these are also some areas that are really important for education today. Places for teachers and students to come outside, bring a class out with this really wonderful exposure to the south. You can also see that there's the early education playground behind us. Those of you may remember, there used to be the main playground, which was directly in front of the school, and that's moved off to the side in front of the library as part of the Central Hill Master Plan. You can see the new plantings that are going in as well. There'll be some gardening on the other side of the building, and then this walkway that will carry you over to the main entrance. The secondary entrance is for the child care and the daycare center. as well as the CHA facility that's also connected to the nursing program inside.
So we're standing just inside the main entrance to the new Somerville High School. As you come in from the outside, you are placed right within the dining commons space. And since we've been here last, there's obviously been a tremendous amount of progress that they've made here in terms of trying to complete things. The work has been progressing from the western side of the building towards the eastern side where we are now. You can see that there's still floor protection down, even though the entirety of the floor for the cafeteria is complete below us. There's a wonderful city seal right at the entrance, just as a recognition of place and the environment that we're in, just as we come to the main doors. But then just beyond us, we have the gymnasium that's immediately connected and available for community use, after hours use, as well as games, performances, all sorts of activities. So as we stretch off towards the eastern side of the building, the main administration offices are now nearing completion as well. And we proceed down with other administrative offices, such as the Welcome Center, the nurse's office, and even the district technology offices are down in that direction.
Good. So this stair takes you up to the auditorium from the main entrance, so you can access the auditorium from both the City Hall side and from the main entrance of the school. You can see the amount of daylight that comes in from the southern exposures we talked about outside.
Yeah, there's really many different ways of using the auditorium space. You can come in through the main entrance of the school. There's a dedicated entrance as well that comes off the main promenade over near the 1895 building that it can be accessed, or it will have the exterior doors that lead down the main sort of memorial stairs right down into the Highland Ave environment.
From up here you could really see how what we call the dining commons really will be probably the space that'll get used almost 24/7 by students. We would envision this would be an active space morning, noon, and night because of its connection to the public spaces that will get used after hours. The Bruin Fieldhouse, the Auditorium. There's a student store down below here, so that'll be connected to the business school. And you can see that all the trophy cases have been rebuilt and all of the memorial and awards will be brought back into the school as soon as it's completed later in the winter.
I guess we can peek in the auditorium while we're up here. Most of the work here I think has been going on the outside of the building in an effort to try and make this section of the building weather tight. There's been masonry repointing that's been ongoing, masonry coating and repair and replacement, as well as the roof that's going to be providing some enclosure. So the auditorium itself is still very much underway. The stage is still in its rough form in terms of the skeletal structure that you can see. But all the millwork that's going to be in here, the seating, the sloped seating that runs to the back, as well as the stadium seating, all is yet to be done. Essentially, I think the plan is to move here right after occupancy is achieved for the remainder of the building, starting at the beginning of January. And then this will see a lot of activity immediately thereafter with the goal of trying to complete this as quickly as possible.
Still quite unique that this building is served it'll be on its third life now. The original gymnasium, a lot of people still have fond memories of the sporting events that happened in here. My kids were in school when this was the main library, and that served its purpose for many years. And of course, now it'll be this really state-of-the-art theater that's going to be quite spectacular. The music department is now going to be located much closer than it was in the past. It was a little scattered, and we have three major spaces. We have a suitable spaces for the band, for the orchestra, and for the chorus. So they're all purpose-built and have access right to the back of the stage, which they really didn't have in the previous school. And these are going to be special graphic walls. This is a wall that's to celebrate citizens of the city. And then we also have a wall back closer to the auditorium that's to celebrate student achievements and awards. And so these will be changeable over time. And there's also video components to that. So we're looking forward to seeing those be fitted out as the school finishes as well. This entrance here is very intentionally situated close to the city services. It will be City Hall in the 1895 building. As you can see, the restaurant is also located right here behind me. So a lot of City Hall employees, senior citizens, citizens of the city come in here for meals 3 times a week. And there's actually a place for outdoor dining right off this other lobby as well.
So this is the student-run restaurant for culinary arts, one of the 14 Chapter 74 programs that's going to be here at the high school. Now, once the 1895 building has its demolition work completed and the remaining portions of it are there, we'll actually have a wonderful vista out in that direction towards the west, looking all the way out towards School Street, as well as a new field that's going to be located down below us. So really a great opportunity to just be here and have a connection to the surrounding city while being in this really wonderful program that the school runs. And it is an open kitchen concept. So when you're here dining, if you had a student that was here, you could actually have vision all the way into the kitchen. You can see the baking program that's all the way to the back, as well as the cooking program, which is just immediately back behind the wall there. So we're trying to create some connection to the learning and to the activities that are going on here. And then additionally, there's a bakery counter right as you come in through the entry doors. So even while it's not functioning as a restaurant space, the students will have the ability to sell baked goods during the course of the day, both the staff as well as the public that may come and partake.
So here you get a pretty good view of the learning, or the dining commons, excuse me. And you can see if one thing was lacking in the old high school, it was really a place for students to gather. It was a very large school. And so here you can see where the music students will be able to collect and the culinary arts students will be able to collect both during the day and then after hours as they get ready for doing programs in the evening. You can see that programs are meant to be very visible. So here you see this learning lab, very similar to what you might see on television shows and on the cooking channels. And so here's a place for students to really express what they're learning and to also excite students who aren't necessarily in the program but maybe curious about what is also going on in other programs throughout the school. So this is a great opportunity to make the learning and the education within the high school visible to everyone.
You'll start to see that there are some blank walls that are in various spots. And I think when we're done with the project, when it's been fully completed, there will be very few of those actually remaining. What's going to come, and is really one of the sort of finishing touches that we end up putting up within the building, are some environmental graphics, which are things that our firm has designed and are really connections to both programs within the school as well as the larger city in terms of movements or cultural aspects of the city itself. Additionally, though, we do have some open spaces on the walls, such as the one in between the wood paneling there, that will actually serve as a canvas for student artwork. So there's various opportunities there for both 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional artwork that's been planned for and envisioned, and it will be something that this will really bring the school culture into the fabric of the building.
You can get a peek into one of the music rooms, one of the 3 large spaces that serve that really well-subscribed program.
So one of the most important design aspects when we think about musical spaces is really making sure that there's enough volume in the room that's commensurate with the amount of sound that's going to be created. And then once we have that volume, we also need to make sure that we have soft surfaces to address acoustics in terms of reverberance around, but also some hard surfaces as well to make sure that there is that mix of reverberation as well as absorption. So this space has really been tuned for the orchestra program. And then, as Alex said, we also have dedicated spaces for the band program beyond, and then the choral program immediately adjacent.
And again, rooms like this in the old high school were sort of hidden down back corridors. And this, as you can see, with the amount of exposure, again, back to that primary open space for the school, we're again exposing all of these programs. These are programs that require students to subscribe to them in order to thrive, and so you really want to showcase that talent and really show it off to draw kids into these special programs.
So one of the interesting program changes or evolutions that happened during the course of construction is the old family consumer science program has actually been changed out to be a sports science program. And so what we have the opportunity to do now is really study sort of modern theories about how the human body performs in terms of sports activities. And so we're going to have treadmills that are located within that space. So you can actually use heart monitors and you can really understand sort of the performance aspects and again, the impact on the human body. More connection to the health program here as opposed to the science, but there's just another one of those wonderful opportunities for some of that cross-pollination between disciplines to occur. So here we have the new and old Fieldhouse being viewed from up above. So this vantage point that we have here now on the eastern and the western side of the building are really like skyboxes looking into the gymnasium space. An opportunity you didn't have before in terms of vantage. And really wonderful for things like track meets, when really there's no opportunity to have spectators located immediately around the track down at the first floor. So you can come up to the second floor and really get this wonderful view around the entirety of the facility. But what you can see going on there right now is they're putting down the flooring, the new gym flooring. So what they've already done is put down the entirety of the resilient sports floor that runs the entirety of the gymnasium floor. And so there's a substrate down that you can see wood panels forming the majority of it, and that's what's going to give the new floor its bounce and resiliency. What they've also done is put down the new parquet wood for the main basketball court. So that's going to be the main competition court for both basketball and for volleyball. And then what they're in the process of right now is putting down the rubber track surface that runs around the entire perimeter of the building or of the gymnasium. And so that is a very purposeful track surface. So it provides excellent grip running around the surface as well as the straightaways. And then we have the practice basketball courts that are overlaid on top of that at either ends of the gym. The bleachers are going to be lining that entire north wall, almost all the way there from the left-hand basketball backstop all the way to the right hand. So there would be the ability to accommodate all 1,500 plus students at the sort of full design occupancy of the new high school. Obviously on day one, we're going to have less students in there initially, but because of the enormous volume that's in there, it's actually a very well-suited space to be used during pandemic times in terms of air quality and safety, because there is so much volume in there and because the air changes are sort of effective at dealing with such a large space.
There were a number of technical things that were improved in the gymnasium that Matt had also started to touch on. The old mechanical units actually used to sit in the space and generate quite a bit of noise that would make it less than an ideal space for gathering of people during events. And so those units are now sitting up on top of the roof. The entire structure was also restructured, not only just to house those units, but also now we can put photovoltaic panels up on that roof, which is certainly one of the intended goals of the city as well going forward. And then completely repainting it white, those who are in the old gym will recognize that it's a lot brighter and really more beneficial for sporting events going forward.
What had happened previously is because one of the courts was undersized, it actually restricted where the school could hold competition practices for varsity and for JV. And because of that, it actually sent practice times for basketball pretty late into the evening. I think some starting as late as like 9 o'clock on a weeknight. So what we've done is actually resize all the courts so that there's actually 3 full-size competition courts that can be used for practice purposes, which will greatly expedite and make more efficient sort of the practice schedule for the teams. Additionally, what we're going to be able to do is have the full section of bleachers pull out to its full extent while this main court is active. Previously, the court was shifted over to the left-hand side here, or the west, so that they were aligned with the bleachers that were just down at this end. But because we're now extending the bleachers across the windows, and you can see that we've made solid sections of window to be able to accommodate that towards the eastern side. Because the bleachers stretch the full length of the court, we can center the court now within the gym. It's just shifted a little bit now towards the southern wall. So this is another sort of blank wall that we have running across this long balcony overlooking the dining commons that actually is going to have an environmental graphic applied to it. That's a timeline of the school construction here on Central Hill. So it starts on the left-hand side, ranging all the way back to probably the 1800s, when the school was housed in what is now City Hall before it received any of its additions. And it's going to stretch all the way down in terms of showing a plan evolution till we get to the point where this building is then built as of 2020, 2021.
This is somewhat like a food court in a mall in some ways. Students will be up here probably also eating, taking a little bit of pressure off the dining commons down below us. There's a space behind here that's also available for teachers to come down and also do, again, some informal out-of-class learning as well here in teaching. So a lot of different environments, as mentioned before, for students and teachers to congregate around this primary central space.
So there are a lot of fantastic artifacts that we were able to salvage from the existing school before portions of it were torn down. And some of them are plaques and memorials that will be relocated throughout the building. There are some very sort of interesting and fun ones as well, in that we have a couple of seats from the original Boston Garden that were previously located within the atrium space around the 1984 construction. So those are going to be relocated here, sort of at this eastern skybox view. So it'll be a really wonderful opportunity to sort of sit there and sort of gaze out over the gymnasium, reusing those seats and sort of reimagining their purpose in a different kind of way. Let's head upstairs maybe to the media center.
So we're right above the main entrance, if you look off to the side here, but you can also see that we're directly above the dining commons. So this is now the learning commons of the media center. And you can see it's a very unique space in that it really connects the east side of the school to the west side of the school, and will now really be a more centralized focus than the old school, which was located in the old gymnasium. So a lot of spaces for teachers and students to come in and really take advantage of the technology that will be available in this space.
I think it's really a wonderful opportunity to have the students also immersed within the library experience. So many times libraries are sort of cloistered spaces that are that there's a barrier that you actually have to walk through to be able to get into them. Here it's really part of the overall school environment, as Alex said, walking back and forth from the eastern to western side. But it really means that there's going to be books off to your right-hand side as you walk through. There's going to be collaboration areas. And you're going to really be exposed to all the resources that this space affords. We have small group study rooms that are acoustically private, but you can still get together and do work in. We have soft seating for students to be able to just sit and read, use a Chromebook. A lot of wonderful opportunities. And then I think the connection running out to the rest of the city here. We're really overlooking the main entrance as we come in, so you really have that wonderful opportunity to just have a sense of your surrounding context. And especially at night when this is all lit up, the lights above us, there's a really great presence of this particular space within the overall school environment.
Located behind Matt over here is a makerspace that's also associated with the Library Media Center. This is certainly an ongoing trend in education. So not only are there the hands-on learning spaces that are a part of the vocational program or say the arts programs or music programs. So here there's one that's directly associated with the Media Center, and then directly above is the graphic arts design program. So again, we're trying to create synergies within the high school, really closely associating some of these important aspects of media in the modern educational environment. And then off to the east, we have a small green roof section. There's two of these, one on either side of the new auditorium, and then something that won't be visible from the front of the building, but there is this central courtyard which provides an outdoor space for the media center. So that's going to be populated with places to sit. They'll be able to come out and do media in that space, and it's also connected to one of the important special needs programs. so that those students have a chance to get outside. We have very limited site space on the hill, obviously, so having some outdoor space up in the air is important as well. And if you're wondering what these grills are, this is part of what's called a displacement air system. There'll be a few rooms in the entire school that will have it, so this is actually where the primary air conditioning will serve this space, so it'll be a very comfortable environment. There'll be quite a number of students will be in here, a lot of computers, a lot of Chromebooks, as Matt had said, so you will have that very comfortable place for kids to be. And the primary sort of teaching space within the library is right there.
Started to install the catenary lights as well that stretch across the outdoor roof garden to this level. It should be a very nice space even during the evening, potentially on a summer when it's nice outside to be able to go out there. It'll have one of those slate chalkboards that's out there, as well as a white canvas that is an opportunity to either use as a de facto projection screen, or it's an opportunity for the school and the art program to come out there and again create some type of mural out there in that space. A lot of different functions and potentials out in that environment.
And you can see the 4 skylights that when we were down in the dining commons also bring light down into the center of the school where there's no direct access to daylight through windows.
So this is officially the phase 2 section of the building. So you can see, as compared to some of the spaces that we were walking through previously, things are still underway in terms of construction. At the same time, furniture has been delivered, so it's a little bit of a shell game that's going on here right now in terms of shifting around the pieces of furniture and the equipment that's been delivered while also getting the construction just fully completed. So it's a little bit trickier to manage at that point, but certainly that's what's going on here right now and things are progressing.
Hidden within this pile of construction debris is one of these open classroom spaces as well. And so now that we're on the eastern side of the building where a couple of the key science programs and all the labs that are stacked up on floors 2, 3, 4, and 5, you can bring a math class out here, you can connect with the science programs. We also have down here sort of a corollary to the lecture hall, which I believe we went in the last time. But this is a flat floor, large group instruction room. So teachers in this side of the building can bring multiple classrooms together, can have a guest lecturer in here as well. They can do programs that may run for a week at a time. Just gives them a lot more flexibility than a small singular classroom. So this is sort of at the heart of the eastern side of the building.
This is one of our 12 new science labs that we have located within the building. The science labs are intended to be very flexible, in addition to being more generously sized than previously existed in the former school building. So the flexibility is achieved with all of the lab tables that are on casters, lockable casters, so they can be shifted around. And the room can function equally well in this sort of lecture configuration that you see it in right now, as well as a lab configuration, in which case the tables are actually all rotated around and then they're pressed up against the perimeter countertops. And then students can work on experiments at that point, accessing both the natural gas as well as the sinks that are located around the perimeter. So it gives flexibility in that way. Additionally, in the center of the room, you see hanging up above a large structural metal frame that allows for physics-based experiments, things like pendulums, gravity, things that need sort of a hanging aperture to work with, as well as overhead electrical coil reels. So that allows for flexibility. If all the tables are shifted out, there can be power in the middle of the room and again allow for additional types of experiments. You can use the microscopes at these tables with that approach. So overall, I would say that the flexibility and sort of multifunctionality of this space are key, as well as the safety. We have recessed emergency eye washes and showers that are located within the space. We have emergency power stops as well as gas stops. So all of this can be shut off if there is any type of emergency that takes place. Located between each of the science labs is a prep room as well. And you can see up on the 3rd and the 4th floors where we have the biology and the chemistry science labs, and maybe up on the 5th floor as well. The fume hoods that we have located between the labs and the prep rooms are intentionally set up with 2 panes of glass. And what that allows is for the fume hood to really be used as a teaching apparatus. So a teacher can actually move towards the prep room side, conduct an experiment within the safety of the fume hood, and students can gather around and sort of view from the laboratory side at the same time. So it's a great way of getting that functionality. The door remains open so that someone can audibly hear whatever is going on. But it's a nice way of using the prep room, which is sometimes really an inactive space or something that's just functional, and it really lets it be part of the learning environment as well.
Nice wide corridors. Very purposefully, we only put the lockers on one side so that it doesn't neck down during the change of class period. So there's plenty of room for students to move and still get their books or grab a jacket. Hydration stations. Each of the floors on this level, 3, 4, and 5, have teacher planning centers. So there's room for the teachers in each department to gather. There's a department head office. There's small conference rooms. There's space for traveling teachers or, say, student teachers or interns to also come in and professionally connect with their department. And then right next to that is the 4 houses of the school as well, Beacon, Highland, Elm, and Broadway, with the guidance counselor associated with them. They have a conference room as well, and then they can be connected to the teachers and very closely connected to the students on every single floor.
So some of the interesting features of these stairs, in certain of the stairs that are sort of pressurized, and because of this building being a high-rise environment, is that there are glow-in-the-dark, for lack of a better term, stripings that are located throughout the stair. This one only actually has it on the stair treads, but we'll see in some of the other stairs we actually have it on the handrails as well. And really what these are intended to be is if for whatever reason the power goes out and the emergency generator failed, because all the lighting that's within these stairwells is all backed up on emergency generator, it would provide a lit path all the way down and out of the building. So it just adds another degree of sort of safety. Something that's code-driven because, again, we are a high-rise building, but something a little atypical from maybe a normal stair.
Anybody who was in the old high school will remember that all the main stairs were very poorly lit. So these are meant to be environments that, again, are welcoming to students. You can see them at the end of every corridor. They bring a lot of daylight, and students can sit at these windowsills. Again, again, this sort of informal space for students to socialize and connect.
So the 5th floor is slightly different than the plan of this eastern side of the building than the other floors 2 to 4. And really what happens is the science labs shift back away from that front facade. And you can see here the hallway then shifts accordingly. But what we have in the center of the 5th floor when we're at this level are really 2 of the wonderful CTE programs that we have within the building. And again, by placing them on the 5th floor, we're really trying to make connections throughout the environment for the CTE programs, that they're not located in basement spaces. So up here on the 5th floor, right as you walk out of the stair, is the dental assisting program on this side, and then we have the health assisting program on the other side. So when you come through, there will actually be a dental chair. We have 4 dental chairs, I think, located here. So it's a wonderful signpost as you come up the stairs, really, of some of the activity that's going on. It makes it apparent to the entire student body, anyone that comes to the 5th floor, exactly what's going on here. And then these spaces really serve as sort of hubs of energy within this overall 5th floor environment.
You've got your general sciences, your biology and chemistry. So these career services programs, you're not trying to limit a student, right? They may come out of here with a certificate, but the goal is that they're also college bound. That's really the beauty of the comprehensive high school that Somerville High School is.
This is a typical classroom. Yeah, I mean, it is a corner classroom, so it does have 2 elevations of windows in it, which is maybe a little atypical. But in terms of program, this may be an English classroom, this may be a social studies classroom, or math classroom. But it does sort of showcase the wonderful type of natural light that's coming in, as well as supplemented by the direct, indirect lighting that we have within these spaces. The table setup was chosen after a long selection process with the staff as well as students being able to test out some of those things in sort of a furniture fair that we set up within the old building. So these triangular desks that can be arranged in any combination of shapes to form groups are really the intent, in trying to move as far away as possible from standard desks that might just be aligned in a row with a teacher sitting at the front of the room. The vision here is really that the teacher is moving around the room with the students, working with the groups, collaborating with them, and sort of leading the instruction from the side as opposed to stand and deliver type of instruction. We have tried to incorporate as much whiteboard space, instructional surface around the room. You can see the cabinets as well that are faced with a whiteboard material, so they can be scribbled on, used for lesson planning, really whatever is needed. Just to, again, try to maximize the flexibility of the space. And then these spaces that are on the northern side of the building really have this fantastic view out towards Medford, Malden. You can see Everett even from here. So the health assisting program has broken up into a few different rooms. This room is actually the pharmacy program, which is, again, very interesting for a high school to have this type of environment. But what we have here is a mock pharmacy, both sort of customer retail desk as well as back of house desk. That's really meant to replicate a working pharmacy environment. There's no actual pills that are used here in terms of just being able to sort of practice dispensing. Everything is sort of mock, sort of pretend pills. But in terms of the various activities that would take place, you can get hands-on experience in terms of how this space may function. And then there's a classroom portion that's over towards this side of the room. And then we have the main health assisting lab that has, again, various components within it. There's a classroom area that will have desks lined up on one side, and then we'll actually have hospital beds lining the other side of the room. And so just as we came up from the eastern stair and we saw that there was dental chairs located right within vision, on this side we will have hospital beds as you come up, visible through glass. So again, you get a very sort of visible presence for this particular program on the 5th floor at the heart of this particular area of the building. And then both the health assisting lab as well as the dental lab have enormous skylights located because they are central. They don't have any direct exterior windows, so we bring natural light in from above and then supplement that with artificial light. But really a great size resource space to allow a variety of different aspects of that program to function. We do have office spaces then that are shared and connect. They're a shared resource that work between, so we'll have instructors for both health and dental that are located here. And then we also have shared locker rooms as well as linen rooms, support functions that really work for both of the programs themselves. So we are standing now within the 5th floor electrical shop within the building. Again, one of our 14 CTE programs. The space is a little bit sort of modified from its final vision right now because they've just gone ahead and applied the spray-applied acoustic coating to the underside of the structure and the roof deck up above us. So what that does is reduce the reverberation within this space, which within a CTE program that's really showing kids how to work in the electrical profession, there'll be a lot of noise within here. So having the acoustic treatment up above is really one of the sort of key factors and qualities within this space to make sure that it's functional and workable for everybody. So surrounding the space, we have a series of wiring booths. So each of these is essentially something that a single student would have access to. They'll be installing circuits, wiring on one of the panels, taking it down to make it functional. Every one of the project booths actually has an emergency shutoff on it, just in case there was anything that happened. The instructor or the student has the ability to immediately cut power to any of the stations. And then we also have a mock-up house that's located up at this level. So this is a small environment that students can actually mock up a real-world environment of a small sort of residential structure. It's something that can get modified, and it really has the intention of being modified over the course of time, working with the electrical students or potentially even with the carpentry program in terms of taking it down and rebuilding it in different ways.
The electrical shop will also have direct access to this outdoor learning environment. And the intention here is that they can have mock-ups of photovoltaics. They will also have a small demonstration turbine for wind-generated power. So these are, again, our career paths that are much in demand moving forward. And so this will be a great relationship with the indoor electrical component, and then where we see sustainable energy and design moving in the future as well.
And what's nice being out here, the same way that the roof garden for the media center down below has sort of a quiet feeling to it, and it resonates with the spaces that surround it, both the medically fragile program as well as the media center itself. Up here, you obviously get exposed to a lot more of the functionality of the building, the working HVAC units, and all the sort of functional systems within the building. But that really is it does tie into the goal of the electrical program and the CTE programs in general. Having the ability to be out here to see all this and the equipment in a really safe environment is something that was important as part of the educational goals for the building overall. And in all of these rooftop courtyards, you'll see blank areas that are on the wall right now. That will be infilled with a slate panel that can actually be used as sort of a chalkboard environment, sort of the exterior marker board equivalent, something that you can still have an instructional surface out here on the roofscape. So you probably noticed as we've been walking through the school, the lights have been turning on before us as we pass into various spaces, the stairs included. So the entire school is equipped with a fully integrated lighting control system. So that's tied to motion detectors that are located throughout. So when the building is not being used, the lights can dim or turn themselves off and conserve energy. So we have windows looking down into the music programs that we were looking at before, down from level 2. So we're up on the 3rd floor. And this is, again, one of those opportunities to create some vertical connection within the building because we are so very stacked in terms of the organization of the program. It's important to find these opportunities to allow students to understand what's going on within the building outside of maybe what they're doing for themselves, and having these visual connections to other levels is one of those great opportunities.
As Matt mentioned, a lot of these walls and surfaces will get a lot of graphic design. It'll also represent each of the programs that are adjacent to them. This is really sort of the prow of the ship. Hopefully we'll get down there. We can see the main stair that would take you down to the eventual GLX and the Gilman Square station. And this will be very dramatic space. If you've driven by it at night, you already sort of see it glowing like a lantern when you're coming up Medford Street or Pearl Street. And so this is the language lab, so it's a little bit larger than a typical classroom, but it's also associated with the English department, the foreign language department, and the history department on this western side of the school.
Yeah, from this vantage point, you can get a great idea of the progress of the Green Line extension project as well. You can see them starting to actually pour the platform that's eventually going to make its way through there. And then part of the high school work is actually to create an elevator connection that leads down from the field level down to the community path level. And then from the community path, you can actually reach across out towards the platform for the Gilman Square station and then drop down to the station itself. From this vantage point, you can really make out all those various components, both the field that will eventually take the place of the boiler plant and the smokestack that's right here and will stretch all the way out to School Street, as well as the community path, which will start more or less where the temporary pedestrian bridge starts from right there, and will swing all the way down through, all the way over towards the eastern end of the Medford Street bridge. And then right at the center point is where that connection to the future Gilman Square station will be. A bike shelter at that location in terms of providing some secure storage for bicycles, as well as the elevator up to the field, and then which would take you on the stairs and all the way to the concourse in Highland Avenue. So we are providing connectivity and accessibility all the way down from the tracks all the way up to Highland Ave and sort of the civic center of the city.
So this is really the culmination of 5 projects that are happening in the city right now. The high school is obviously generated because of the connection to the Massachusetts School Building Authority and the separate funding that flowed to the city for this particular project. But then the city embarked on doing an entire master plan for all of Central Hill so that we could really plan thoughtfully for the connection between all of the buildings here, the civic quadrangle and then also the academic quadrangle where we started. And so then you also have the city and Rich Raich and his team working on the sewer separation project, which Matt talked about the stormwater earlier, that our connection at the top of the hill, so to speak, is very important. The GLX program, everybody's extremely aware of that. And then eventually there'll be the renovations for the 1895 building, which will be part of the City Hall Annex. City Hall itself will get renovated, and then perhaps down the line, plans for the main branch of the library to get renovated as well. So a lot going on up here.
The lecture hall was just a rough state of completion the last time we visited it. So at this point, you can really start to get an idea of the finished condition of the room.
And this was critically located on this side of the building, not only to give this secondary entrance some prominence, but also because of its civic nature. Obviously it's sort of more of a collegiate environment with this steeply raked seating arrangement, but also because City Hall doesn't necessarily have large gathering or meeting spaces, this can also very much serve the city. So we really see the school building as serving the entire population of the city of Somerville in many respects.
This particular space, when it's active at night for a community meeting, really does serve as sort of a beacon or a lantern within the city. You can see it coming all the way up from Union Square right at the end of the terminus of the street. And even if you have people that are arriving on site and trying to figure out where they're going to be going, this space will be very visible to them, and sort of the access path to it should be very apparent. So it's a wonderful symbol also within the city in terms of this public and civic engagement.
Educationally, it's a great place to bring 4 or 5 classes in. You could have guest lecturers coming in, speaking on any single topic. Obviously, we can have public venues where the mayor or other entities in the city can come over and also guest lecture to students. It also serves, it's acoustically capable of also doing small piano recitals, maybe simple one-act plays, where the large full auditorium is just a little bit too big and you want to do something a little bit more intimate. So this space will really serve that purpose very well. We're very fortunate that the comprehensive school has so many hands-on type learning spaces, and that's really what Matt and I will talk about all day long, about how important it is for students to have those kinds of engaging programs with the teachers and to be able to either get into a direct career path or to take that forward into higher learning, which is really heading in that direction as well. Lecture halls are still a part of that, but this is just a very special and unique space and an opportunity for the city.
What's interesting here as well is that you obviously have the 1895 building immediately adjacent in the background as sort of one bookend to this space. But then you also are going to have the renovated 1929 auditorium space on the other end. And so what you see right now is really anticipating the arrival of the brick masonry, the windows, and then the precast trim pieces that are going to articulate this particular elevation. And all of that was designed in a way to really replicate what was there previously. We're trying to be as authentic to the previous construction that was falling apart, quite literally, as we were recreating it. So it will still have very much the same character that it had historically. And then it will be augmented by obviously the new roofing material. There will be photovoltaic panels that are also visible and installed on these sloping roofs on top of the auditorium. And then we do have a small section of green roof that's going to be visible over here as well. It's what we call sort of an extensive type of green roof that is mounted in trays, some sedum that is very low maintenance, but is a nice visual indicator of sort of the commitment again to the management of the stormwater and the filtering of the stormwater before it actually hits the drains within the building.
The old locker rooms used to be underneath what was the library, old gymnasium, and so we added onto the building here to the west, of course, but there to the east we also added on all the locker room facilities. So much more close, adjacent to the gymnasium, obviously a lot more safe and secure. And the athletic director's office is right there with the windows as well in the corner. So just a lot more functional use of space.
Underneath that large tarp here is a climbing wall that is new to the resources within the gymnasium. So the climbing wall is set up with, I think, 3 manual belay bars up at the top and 3 auto belays. And so there's opportunities for a variety of skills and experience in terms of climbing. And I think it is the vision of the health and PE director that working with the carpentry students, there's opportunities to sort of set your own routes on that wall. Moving the grips around is something that's an art really in terms of rock climbing. But it's something that I think the school has visions of them being able to do themselves as they're experienced with the wall and their sort of facility with manipulating it, grow and develop over time. So it's a great resource to have located here within the high school. So we're at the interesting connection point of the lower dining commons, as we call it, the lower section of the student dining commons that expands out here onto this terrace. But it's also the connection of this stair that's going to reach from the field elevation all the way up to the concourse. So various ways of trying to knit together the urban fabric of the city through the high school project and alongside the high school project at the same time. Down at the base of the stair off to the right-hand side, you can see the main entrance to the Next Wave Full Circle school environment. So that is, again, our school within a school that houses the district's alternative both middle school and high school programs. And that is one of the groups of students that will be some of the first back in the school, given that the building that they were previously located in is one of the less suitable in terms of occupation given current health concerns. So this new building has full filtration on the air handling units, so it provides a much more suitable environment to allow students back into the building as soon as possible. So that will be their dedicated entrance when the field is torn down. Most likely, I think in the interim period, they'll access their space through the interior of the building. But also off of the field elevation down below, there will be the loading dock spaces, as well as the access into the auto technology shop that cars will be able to actually come in off of School Street and be serviced within that garage space that's accessed from down below.
You also really get a great sense of the quality of the materials that the city invested in. You can see the granite that's going to be durable and will really last forever, anticipating all of the traffic that we would expect between the GLX and on up to City Hall. And then the terracotta panels that really pick up on the sort of the beautiful brick hues of the city, and obviously 1895 and City Hall in particular, and then some accent brick that was used as well. So stainless steel handrails throughout, granite steps and concrete steps. So everything is really, really very durable and built to last. And over Matt's shoulder, if you get a look at it, we took great care to make sure all the services of the school would be hidden. The field that's going to be appearing here in the next few months, this is going to be a very active place, and so we wanted to hide those dumpsters. They'll all be tucked away underneath the hillside, and it'll really make the environment a lot sort of cleaner and look a lot more bright. The auto tech access is also down there for the road that will connect over to School Street as well.
One thing you don't quite see here yet are the glass infills. So because the occupancy is going to be coming in January, and because they needed to get something in to make sure that this was a safe environment before construction was completed, they put in these temporary solid panels. But as soon as the glass is on site, glass infills will replace all these solid panels, and it will really open up that view to the north just that much more. To make it an amenable environment. It is sort of an interesting space being on the northern side of the building, receives a lot of shadow, but there's definitely times during the year when that will be a wonderful amenity to be out here in sort of a cooler, windier environment, right at the end of the summer and right at the beginning of the summer or the end of the school year. There will be times when this is really a wonderful space to be out here and have access to this resource.